So welcome to A Cartoonist Guide to the Bible. I'm Steve Thomason, and in this video, we're going to look at Acts chapter 9, the story of Saul and his conversion and how Ananias courageously reaches out and welcomes this guy who was coming to arrest him and have him killed. So it's a pretty good story. I hope you're ready. So let's dive in. If you've been following along, if you're a Narrative Lectionary person, you know that last week we ended the Gospel of John, and this week we jump across 8 chapters of the book of Acts and pop into Acts chapter 9. So here at cartoonistbiblecom, I've updated the homepage so you can get right to it, Acts, and then later Philippians. But anytime that you come to this site, you can always just hover over the bookshelf and come down and click on Acts. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Acts, and let's just do a quick overview. Here's how the landing page of each book of the Bible on Cartoonist Bible works. There's always an introduction that you can click on that and read about the book. If you know what you're looking for and you want to just look at the visual guide, in this case, it would be Acts 8 and 9, because we're looking at Acts chapter 9. If you're just interested in getting right to available downloads of PowerPoints, images, PDFs, all that kind of stuff, this is a catalog of all of the PowerPoints that are available for you, or the downloads available. If you would like some videos to watch and share, if there's a video made about this book, then this is the place to find it. You can see that, in fact, there is a Saul and Ananias video that I made a couple of years ago. If you're looking for Bible studies that are in print, there is an Acts study in print. And then if you're looking for other places to go online, Enter the Bible and the Bible Project. These are links directly to their Acts resources. So there you go. That's just an overview of how every book of the Bible at Cartoonist Bible works. So let's just do a quick overview. I'm going to click on the interactive outline of the book of Acts. And you can see that this is a map that shows that Acts can be organized into 3 basic sections. The first is in what happens in Jerusalem, and that's chapters 1 through 7. And then because of the murder of Stephen, the disciples are scattered, and the disciples start branching out beyond Jerusalem into Judea and Samaria. And that's chapters 8 through 12. And then from chapters 12 through 28, Paul takes center stage and takes the message of Jesus across all kinds of boundaries and out to the ends of the earth throughout the Roman Empire. So that's like the basic outline. Now here's a thumbnail. Many years ago, I drew my way through the book of Acts in a 15-week study. And there's one thumbnail for each section of that study. And so I've broken it down into 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, so on. So I'm going to just jump in, and you can just walk through the story like this with each of these images. So Acts chapter 1 and 2 is where the church starts in Jerusalem on the day of Pentecost. Jesus pours out the Holy Spirit. And then in Acts chapters 3 and 5, there's this snapshot of what the early church was like, lots of healing. There's confrontations with the religious leaders again, but this time we realize that the Pharisees actually become kind of sympathetic to the way of Jesus. And then Acts chapter 6 and 7, we have this powerful story, first of all, of how there's the beginnings of divisions and fights among the early church, because it's a church, and the invention of the role of a deacon or a servant. And these are Stephen is one of these deacons, and Stephen gets up and he calls out the synagogue of the freedmen, and they stone him to death. And a witness of that stoning is this young Pharisee named Saul. And so then if we come to Acts chapter 8 and 9, you'll see that a lot of things happen in 8 and 9. In chapter 8, we see that the church is scattered, and Peter and Philip, they have ministry with Samaritans and the Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch. And then in chapter 9, we come to the story for this week. So I've got I illustrated this story quite intensely. And so I want to show you the resources for that. You can jump right here. If you already know you want this, you can jump right here and click on this download. You can download it for free, or give whatever you want to the ongoing work of a cartoonist guide to the Bible. But let's click right here on Saul and Ananias, and you'll see that there is a commentary on this, because I preached on this a couple of years ago. I did make a video, and there is a 2-page graphic novel that you can download as a PDF if you want to use it. Here's a preview of the PowerPoint, but I'm going to actually just go to the PowerPoint and walk you through it. So here's a cartoonist guide to Acts chapter 9, verses 1 through 20. So it starts off in the first 3 verses, and it shows us that Saul is back on the scene. Now, Saul, remember, he was the one who witnessed the murder of Stephen by stoning in the streets. And it says Saul was approved of Stephen's execution. Severe persecution broke out against the church that day, and Saul hunted the disciples down and dragged them to prison. And then he sought permission from the religious leaders of Jerusalem to go to the city of Damascus up in the north and imprison the disciples of the way. On his way to Damascus, Saul encounters a bright light, and from that light he hears a voice, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" And Saul replies, "Who are you, Lord?" And he basically spends the rest of his life trying to answer that question. The voice says, "I am Jesus, whom you persecute. Get up and go to the city. I'll tell you what to do when you get there." And so when Saul gets up, he can't see. He is blind, and his companions, they're confused. They know something happened to him, but they don't know exactly. And so they lead him to the city, and he goes to a man's house named Judas, and he is there blind for 3 days. And then we cut to a scene where a man named Ananias is in his home praying, and Jesus says to him, "Ananias," and he says, "Here I am, Lord." And Jesus says, "Go to Straight Street to Judas's house. Saul of Tarsus is there. He has seen that you are coming to heal his sight." And Ananias is like, "Lord, this guy is evil. Like, he's come." I mean, word got out that Saul was on his way, and these disciples of Jesus, they are terrified. But Jesus says, "Go, for he is a vessel that I have chosen to bring my name to the Gentiles. I will show him how much he must suffer for my name." Man, I can't even imagine being Ananias. Like, this guy's coming to arrest me, and now Jesus is telling me to go and befriend him. Well, Ananias does it. He goes to Judas's house, and he says, "Brother Saul, Jesus sent me so you can see again and be filled with the Holy Spirit." Imagine that moment. So Saul stands up, and when he stands up, his sight is restored. Saul is baptized. It's a powerful scene of reconciliation. And here's my one piece of interpretation here is what I see in this passage is that Ananias, he saw Saul through one set of lenses as the executioner, the one coming to destroy him. And Saul saw Ananias through the lens of a guardian of his faith, and that Ananias was a threat to his way of life. But now, through this encounter with the risen Christ, they both can see each other through different lenses. So both of them had their sight healed and restored in this story. So there you go. That's the story of Ananias and Saul. And if you're preaching or teaching this passage this week, I hope you'll find these resources helpful. You can download the PowerPoint, the PDF. You can show the video anytime you want, and it's all for free. And I'm just glad to be able to share this with you. I hope you will share this with your friends, that you'll have a great week of preaching and teaching, and we'll see you next time.